This is a really, really exciting day in the Good Listening To show, Stories of Distinction and Genius Clearing. I'm Chris, Watch Your Story Grimes, and have I got a story for you? Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome, he's just told me the story behind the story of this, which I know he will tell us even more about, One Shot Gotts. This is Andy Gotts, who is, you may not know this yet, but you will soon, he is Hollywood's favourite photographer. Anybody you can think of that you'd like to photograph in a really truly original, iconic black and white style, Andy Gotts has already had them behind his lens and they're in the shutter and stored, you've just told me very enigmatically, in some sort of archive that requires you to run perpetually a VPN. Do you want to just tell us a bit more about that, Andy?
Yeah, it's an insurance policy quirky quagmire of a stupid thing. It's because in the good old olden days, I mean, I've done this 36 years, but the first 21 years, I only shot film. That's all I shot. Then in about 2009, I started shooting digital because I had to, because of Al Pacino. Anyway, I'll tell you that later. So I had to shoot digital. And so everything since 2009 is it's not a physical thing in your hand anymore. It's a thing on a drive that can be lost. So now, because of insurance, if I want to insure my backlog, my collection,
yes,
everything digital has to be backed up 3 times every hour. It has to be sandboxed 3/4. And the other quarter has to be permanently VPN'd. Ridiculous.
What an extraordinary problem to have. And that is because you have an absolute archive to literally die for. It's a fantastic, phenomenal gallery and glitterati of stars. I also know, and please do get on the open road and tell us about this, in 1995, I believe it was, you made a dream list, I think, of 150 actors you wanted to get in front of your lens. And then I'm so happy to have got you now, because I think only at the beginning of this month have you completed your list, with Gary Oldman being the last one, with Gene Hackman, who I think died just before you could get hold of him. But just tell us the story, Andy Gotts, of your extraordinary path, journey and trajectory to now, because it's an extraordinary story.
Yeah, so literally, it was 1990 and I went to college. And it was in King's Lynn in Norfolk. And I was doing this photographic course. It was a 2-year course. And I then fell in love with photographing portraits and then celebrities. And I thought, I left college. I started doing a bit of Sunday supplements, magazine work, and knocking on doors and showing my portfolio around, trying to get, and I started getting a few people, and I thought it'd be really nice, it'd be lovely to be able to have a entire collection of portraits. So I wrote 300 letters to 300 actors, and after 6 months there was not one response. There was nothing at all. And I had a phone call one day from Joss Ackland, and he'd just done Lethal Weapon. And he said, hate being photographed, loathe it, but if you come to Clovelly and shoot my son's wedding, at the end, I'll do a photo shoot for you. So I thought, I've got nothing to lose, it's the first one. So I've never done a wedding before. I didn't know what to do. So I went down and I said to the happy couple, I'll do a documentary. I won't do anything posed. I'll just do a documentary. And they were happy with that. Then I shot Joss Ackland at the end of he's very tipsy by then, obviously being the father of the groom. Happy and jolly. So I've done some lovely pictures of him. And then because it was a 6-hour drive from Norfolk to Clovelly, he said, well, stay the night and go home tomorrow. So I kept on his couch. And the next morning, the family had flown, and it was him and his lovely wife, Rosemary. Obviously, they're both now departed, unfortunately, but Rosemary was there. And Joss said, so how's the project going? I said, it's not, it's rubbish. You're the only person to wave a little flag to say yes. He said, I'll tell you why. The letter you sent to me There was no direction. There was no call to action. It is, can I photograph you? He said, you need a theme. You need a reason. And I said, but I cockily said, well, like what, Joss? And he said, well, what do you do? Who shagged who? And I said, I don't think many people will, say yes. But at that time, it was the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon was then starting. So I said, why don't we do the Who Knows Who? And so he threw me in the direction of Greta Scacchi. And that's how the wish list of it was 100 people I put. Yeah. They started to be checked off. Yes. And literally within the first 7 years, I'd shot, I think, 96 of them.
Wow.
And there's a few that were on there. And then it got to this year, and I knew I'd never get Gene. I knew that because I know people who knew him, and I didn't know about his dementia. I didn't know how poorly he was. I had no idea. But I was told by numerous people, it won't happen. And then unfortunately he passed away, and the only person left on my list was his lordship Oldman. And I've approached him over the years, I don't know, probably about 12 times. Mm-hmm. And he has a one man who looks after him. He's like his guru. He's his best friend. It's his manager. It's his publicist. It's his everything. His name is Douglas Obowski.
Douglas Obowski, did you say?
Yeah, Douglas Obowski. Yeah. So whenever you see anything to do with Gary Oldman, whether it's Slow Horses or he's now doing the theatre now, doing Crap's Last Tape.
Yes.
If you look on the poster, it's exec produced by Douglas Obowski. His name's always thrown on everything. So anyway, so Douglas always answers with saying thank you, but no. Gary's busy. Gary's doing something, and it's always a no. And so it's one of these quirks of nature. Early this year, a lovely actress called Shona McCarthy, out of the blue, Instagrammed a DM. She slid into my DMs, and she said, "Oh, I'm a young actress. I think you're great. I know I'm not that famous, but will you photograph me, please? Because I think you're great, and it'd be great for a portfolio." So I looked into her, and she's in EastEnders. And I thought, why not? She come across as a young, bubbly, who I think would be fun to photograph. So I said, why not? And so she come to the shoot, come to me here in Mayfair, we're on base. We done the shoot, we got on like a house on fire. And she said, is there anyone you want to photograph you haven't done yet? And I said, well, there's one person. Yeah, Gary Oldman. Should I ask him? Pardon? So, yeah, I'm best friends with his sister, and of course his sister was in EastEnders, and a Big Mo, and I completely forgot that. So she told me, do you want me to phone up Mo and ask her? Because even though her name isn't Mo, everyone calls her Mo in real life. So I'll call Mo and ask her. I said, okay. Now, bear in mind, I'm used to people saying things and not going through. So I was like, that'd be lovely if you would. Yes. And an hour later, Mo's going to go and see him at the weekend. She'll ask him if you can write a letter to email her, all the details, what you want, why you want it. And that weekend, Mo phoned me up. Yeah, Gary said, I'll pop along. And what's lovely, what I adore about this is I waited so long. And sometimes I approach an actor, and you have to go via a publicist or something. Yes. And if they're doing a movie, they're in production and the headspace is there, and you get that. But Gary was doing Crap's last tapes up north and at theatre, and he said, "Do me on a Saturday. I'll do the matinee. I've got a 2-hour break. Then I've got the evening performance. I'll do you in between." And so that's how lovely it was. I mean, he didn't have to go into some headspace. He just did.
Was it your theatre role you went to? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was just, And he was
May I just
so
say-
lovely.
And may I just congratulate you for your tenacity, your patience, and your story arc of inception to completion is just such a beautiful testament. And in the meantime, I don't doubt, I mean, anyone watching, if you look at andygotts.com, you'll fall off your chair. And I don't doubt that you just need to send the website to someone. Can I photograph you? And just whilst we're talking about asking questions, you were so lovely because I'm trying a similar experiment, because I'm calling this the Good Listening To Show Stories of Distinction and Genius. I don't know if you remember, but you're the first time I tried a really quick pickup line, metaphorically. I think you're a bit of a genius. Can I please record you? And you very, very wittily got in touch
Here
and
I
said,
am.
I suppose I am a bit of a one. When would you like to record? And I love that because there's a synergy there, because I am on a similar, different, equivalent path. There's a lovely allegory of the Helsinki bus garage, a story I can bore you about anon, but it's about stay on the flipping bus, stay on the flipping bus, keep going, keep going, keep going. And I love the fact that despite, complete infamy and success, because, the actors you've got, Kate Winslet talks about you being her favorite photographer. You mentioned Al Pacino as number one. Anyway, just check out the website. But I just love the fact that I'm trying to get famous doing this too, but I just love the fact that in a parallel universe, I just tried a facetious line. It wasn't who's shagging who, as you said, you nearly went on.
Never chase fame. Never chase fame.
Tell us more. That's beautiful. Yes. Right.
No, but it's true. I mean, I'm so lucky. I do a job I love, and I'm so lucky that I do a job that I daily work with my acting heroes, and there's only a slim number of photographers who are in the position.
Yes.
But I find, looking around at my peers, they see themselves as they are famous too. And I don't. I'm doing a job. I go to work, I do a job. I don't court the red carpet. I don't court the spotlight. I mean, I don't want that. This is why I really do interviews. I really do stuff. I really, I think I have the luxury of doing an amazing job.
Yeah.
But I'm a photographer. I'm not a celebrity. And that's how I see myself.
May I now, with your permission, get you on the open road? And I'm really, really excited to do this, to curate you through the unique storyscape of the Good Listening Show, Stories of Distinction and Genius. If you haven't seen this show before, where have you been? Not you, Andy. This is me talking to the broader audience. I've done about 300 of these monkeys. Where have you been? But this is the show in which I invite movers, makers, shakers, mavericks, influencers, and also personal heroes into a clearing or serious happy place of my guests' choosing as they arrive to share their stories of distinction and genius. It involves a clearing or your serious happy place that we'll talk about in a minute, a tree, a lovely juicy storytelling exercise called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There's going to be some alchemy, some gold, a couple of random squirrels, a cheeky bit of Shakespeare, a golden baton, and a cake. So it's all to play for. So just before we get you on the open road of asking you where your clearing is, just please tell us the story of why you're called One Shot Gotts, Andy Gotts.
Well, I'm known for shooting very, very quickly. And that's because when I first started my career, I had to shoot in junkets, movie junkets. And so for the people who don't know what junkets are, if a movie comes out, let's say, I don't know, The Godfather, for example, the production company would hire 2 suites in the Dorchester Hotel or hotel similar, rooms side by side. Then in room A, there'd be people from This Morning or The Guardian or whatever in there to do the interview.
Yeah.
And then exactly 10 minutes, there's people there with a stopwatch, 10 minutes. Yeah. Then after 10 minutes, the talent go to the next room to ask exactly the same questions. And in room A, they take it out. Another people are brought in. So every 10 minutes, they go room to room to room all day and being asked the same questions. So for the first 8 years of my life, I had to go into a junket space, set up, do my shoot, break down, and leave the room before a big burly man come in and pulls you out. Yes. So yeah, so that's why I learned to shoot really quickly. There's no messing around. I go into a shoot knowing what I want and get it. And so my career progressed, and I was doing quite well. And then Paul Newman said, I've seen your work. You're an amazing photographer. Please, would you come to Connecticut? And I think on a Thursday, and come to my home, and we'll do a shoot. And I'd absolutely, Mr. Newman, because he was my hero. I mean, out of the galaxy of stars, he was up there. I mean, perfect. So I did. So I went all the way to Connecticut with my 2 bags, my light bag, my camera bag, turned up at his lovely house. I could hear some laughing and joking going on in the room next door, and a little head come out saying, "I'll be 1 minute, I'm just saying goodbye to some friends." Okay, Mr. Newman. So set up the backdrop, set up a light, the doors open, out come Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman as they waved as they went past. And Paul came in, or Mr. Newman came in, and sat down and said, "Okay, kids, how do you want me?" And I said, "Well, I know exactly the shot I want. I promise I'll be quick. I think we'll be done just in a few minutes." He said, "Listen, son, I've been shot by the best. The best. You guys say you'll be a few minutes, you're hours. So I know what." I said, "Mr. Newman, I promise you." 4 minutes later, I'd done. I said, "Mr. Newman, we're finished." He said, "That's impossible." I said, "Here are the Polaroids." He went, "You really are one-shot Gots." And that's how I got my nickname, given by Paul Newman himself.
And ladies and gentlemen, notice, if you will, how Andy Gotts has turned up and made that his name today, One Shot Gotts, which I didn't know until you turned up, which is so exciting. A little bit of wheat come out. That's absolutely fantastic. Okay, so let's get you on the open road of this. Go how you like, where you like, as deep as you like into this structure. So Andy Gotts, what is your clearing or your serious happy place? When are you absolutely at your happiest, and where is that?
I'd say, probably you've had this answer before, but it's my man cave, and it's where I am right now. Yeah. And the reason is because I'm a one-man band. I don't have any staff or anything. I feel and I've felt I need to be in an environment that I'm happy with. So I've turned my little office into a movie man cave, and so I've been collecting movie memorabilia for years. So around me, hidden from view, I've got stuff from Star Wars and James Bond and Lord of the Rings and Home Alone and Die Hard and Harry Potter, all stuff that was used in the movies that I've winkled and picked and stolen and been given over the years. And so I sit here and look around and I see in the corner, a full-size stormtrooper from the original armor from A New Hope is just over there, and behind me there it's an Iron Man helmet from Iron Man. That's the actual helmet. So this is my happy place.
Oh, may I say, as you duck then, I couldn't help noticing, and I want to talk about this as well, the Monty Python picture as well. In your equivalent universe of Paul Newman being your all-time hero, Michael Palin is my all-time comic hero, in the same vein as Stan Laurel. If Stan Laurel was still alive, a bit like Gene Hackman for you, I'd love to have met. I was only 3 when he died, actually. I'd love to have met Stan Laurel. But Michael Palin has said yes to being in this show recently. I'm just trying to get a date because he keeps slipping away from the date. A bit like the Gary Oldman. What's the Gary Oldman lovely man called, who was the gatekeeper?
Douglas Abowski.
I love that. So in a universe of no, there's also a universe of yes, which I love because you kept going, even though he said no quite a few times.
Yeah.
So please talk us. You've done the Monty Python reunion a few times, haven't you?
Yes. So what happened is, over the years, I'd shot all Python separately, and I've become quite chummy with Eric Idle, because his daughter. She wanted to be a photographer, and now she is a photographer, and so we started up a friendship. And I was over in Berkeley, in California, because was Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart were over there together, and Patrick was getting married, and Ian was ornated as the minister to marry Sonny and Patrick. So I went over to photograph the stag do, and so I was over there, and the phone went, and it's Eric, And I goes, Andy, it's Eric. I said, Eric Idle. I said, oh, hi, Eric. Do you still work in Mayfair? I said, yeah. He said, well, do you fancy a little thing? I've got a little thing I think you might be interested with. I said, okay, tell me more. He said, can you be back here for Tuesday? I said, no, I'm in California. And he said, I think, it'd be worth your while. I said, well, tell me. He said, well, every 7 years, Python get together and talk about finance because the money still is rolling in from, residuals and everything.
Yeah.
And he said, every 7 years we get together, we look at the books, we look at where the money is going. And he said, we're all now of an age, we can't think there's going to be many more get-togethers. Would you mind coming and just doing a few photos of us all? He said, we're hardly ever in a room together. Will you come and do some photos? I said, of course.
Of course.
Well, I mean, so round a table. Yeah. Well, so I thought that won't happen. So I said, where is it going to be? He said, the Duke's Hotel, just in Mayfair. So I said, okay. So I arranged to meet there. So I phoned up the hotel and I said, I know there's a meeting room. There's a meeting happening at the end of the week on Tuesday. Do you have another empty space? I could use for a studio. So behind their back, I created a little studio. And so I went to do their thing, them sitting around signing papers and, doing that. Then at lunchtime, I said, gents, I've got a little studio downstairs. How about we just go and do some formal shots? And everyone was very happy, apart from Cleese, who rolled his eyes. Oh, really? Do we have to? It's lunchtime. I'm hungry. And I said, it'd be fun. And so we went down, and I did the shoot. And during the shoot, a conversation happened between the Pythons, saying, "Okay, so we're being sued." And I said, yeah. And so apparently, Spam-A-Lot was someone else's idea, and it was taken to court, and it was proved to be it was this guy's idea, and so they had to pay him, I think, 2.4 million or something ridiculous, and so this conversation happened in front of me, as I was going, click, how do you raise the money to pay off this guy? And I think Terry Jones said, as a joke, let's put the band back together and do a show. And everyone laughed, and it was kind of talked over, and then it kind of marked. So we finished the photo shoot. We all shook hands, said goodbyes, and I went home. The next day, the phone rang, and it was Eric. I went, Andy. Yeah, Eric Idle. Oh, Eric.
Hi, Eric.
He said, who have you told about that meeting we had and the shoot yesterday? I said, no one. He went, don't. I went, okay. He said, I can't tell you why. I'll call you next week. Just don't tell anyone it's happened. I said, okay. Apparently, over the next 3 or 4 days, they all individually sacked their managements. They unified under one umbrella. It was the guy who was the Queen's producer. His name has escaped me, but it was a guy.
Do you mean HRH or Freddie Mercury when you say the Queen's producer?
Oh no, as in the band Queen.
Yeah, sorry.
They had a producer who done like Bohemian Rhapsody, and then he helped them get into Live Aid. So the head Jim Beach is his name.
Yeah.
So they'd hired Jim Beach to be the official spokesperson for Python because they were going to reform and to do a show, and he said no. Eric said, no one's going to know. It's going to be a surprise. We're going to do one night at the Hammersmith Apollo, and no one can know for 6 months. Don't tell us so, but we need photo shoots done. So we'll meet you at 3 o'clock in the morning at Duke's, and we'll all come in separate cars, and so that's what we did over the course of months.
Wow.
So there's only 8 people who knew about the Python reunion, and I was one of them. And then I'd done this lovely shot of them all as the character, the Gumby, so the knotted hanky and little moustache and my brain hurts, that character. And apparently they'd never all done that character since the Hollywood Bowl 40 years previously. and they never done it in the reunions. I'm the only person to have seen them all in this character, and that was the last ever photograph taken of Python, because when they were on stage, they announced they've retired. There will never ever be another Python. Python have ceased to be. The breath of life, they rest in peace. That's it. So that photograph is the last ever shot of Python. And so that's why I am very, very proud of myself.
And Andy Gotch, you have an extraordinary knack of being in the right place at the right time with the right thing happening. May I ask you what you dream about? Because you've got Paul Newman, hi Paul, you've got Tom Cruise, hi Tom, Nicole, and then you've got the Pythons. So what do you dream about?
I dream about, peace and quiet, and I suppose when I do let my mind go, but I used to tell my mum off a lot. I said I was born 10 years too late. But when I first started in the early 90s, and I just started getting a few names, a few of my icons started dying off. People like Jimmy Stewart, people like the Duke,
John Wayne.
All these guys started passing away, and I said, if I was born a few years earlier, maybe I could have got, because it was Stephen Fry told me the story about, he went to see James Stewart when he was a young boy. He was doing the Harvey play in the West End, and Stephen was waiting at the stage door waiting for an autograph, and he said, Jimmy Stewart come out and ruffle his hair. I was like, how are you doing, kid? And Stephen said that was the highlight of his entire life, meeting Jimmy Stewart. And I think, when I let my mind, I wish I'd have, could have done a few of the old guys before they went, I suppose.
And may I ask, have you photographed Bryan Cranston yet?
I have, absolutely.
Because I went to see him in the show and I left a card for him in the stage door. So I'm hoping that, like your call 6 months later, I might get a call, because I've just planted the seed by doing a handwritten card. But who knows? The universe is a funny old place.
That effect has happened. I mean, writing notes, handwritten notes, delivering to the stage door, that does work. It does. And so thinking outside the box and not, doing what everyone does, go to a publicist or manager, the little extra special bits you do, normally pulls up. But Bryan Cranston was lovely. He was doing network when I photographed him.
Yeah.
And he was such a joy. I mean, a bundle of energy and humor, and just a sweet guy. And I think when you do a photo shoot of an actor, it's quite unique, because an actor has been shot 1,000 times before, and they have their faces they go to. So being a photographer of actors, you have to do this very subtle thing. But if it's all them, all the pictures will look identical. So whenever you go on Google, they'll all look the same.
Yeah.
If it's all me and my projection, all my photographs will look the same. So I have to do 50%. They have to do 50%. Then you do this little dance in the middle to get something that's never been seen before. And so that's why I love doing a job where my operandus, the thing I'm there for, is to get something people haven't seen before of a famous face.
I love the dance of reciprocity that's implicit in that it's a 50-50. It's a relationship that you build very quickly by being one-shot gots. Lovely. Forgive me for going off what lovely, delicious tangents, but now I'm going to pull you back in. Your clearing is your man cave that you've beautifully described. And for those watching, or for those listening, you've got Michael Caine, Monty Python, and Kate Moss as the gallery we can see. Also, we need to appreciate that your iconic, your sort of signature style is the wonderful black and white fabric and texture, which is just delicious. As I say, do look at the website. We'll come to show us your QR code at the end, and you will fall off your chair when you see actually who I'm speaking to. So now we're in your man cave. I'm going to arrive with a tree in your clearing, which, talking about Patrick Stewart and Sir Ian McKellen, is a little bit Waiting for Godot-esque. I'm going to shake your tree existentially to see which apples fall out. How'd you like these apples? Got a couple of props for you as well. And this is where you've been kind enough, Andy Gotts, to have thought about 4 things that have shaped you, and I appreciate you're giving us this by the bucket load in any case. 3 things that inspire you, 2 things that never fail to grab your attention, which is where a couple of squirrels are going to come in, borrow from the film Up. And then the 1 is a quirky or unusual fact about you we couldn't possibly know until you tell us. It's not a memory test, but just to get you back into the canopy of your tree, Andy Gotts. What would you say 4 things are that have shaped you?
Well, the go-to answer is going to be number 1. It's going to be my parents. I think that's an obvious answer, but there is a reason my parents was. I come from a very, very working class family. My dad was a milkman, and my mum was a waitress, and so Dad would leave for work at 3 o'clock every morning for 40 years, and go into the middle of Norfolk, in the middle of the countryside, putting 2 pints of silver top on people's doorstep for literally for years and years and years, and he'd come home like midday, then go to sleep, and his work ethic, he never grumbled, he never moaned. It was, but I do a job that I feel fortunate, but I'm surrounded by, I want to go into studios or go into hotels or go into other environments, people doing a job they don't like doing, and they're the first people to tell you they don't like their job, you know. But my dad never complained. He enjoyed his job. He enjoyed meeting the people. Maybe that's what I like my job is. I like the meeting the people. But Dad, he's like, I remember when I was 7, 8, 9, when it was Christmas time, and we used to go and get the boxes to make hampers. My dad would deliver hampers as well as milk, and then I'd go around in the evening delivering the hampers, and then he'd get his little Christmas box from each of the, and happy memories, and the winters that used to snow in those winters. So I used to have to put the things on a sledge and a crate of milk and pull around the avenues to deliver them. It's happy memories. It's the work ethic of and the devoted housewife of Mum. How she devoted and looked after us as a family. I mean, so I think they absolutely shaped the person I am, and I wouldn't be the person I am if it didn't have parents who had to work for every single penny to give their children. Because I know some Christmases they'd saved all year to get a small present for us, and things like that. I mean, they couldn't afford luxury, they couldn't afford big things, but the fact is they gave me and gave my brother what they could, and it was love, and it was a family, and it was stability, and it was being honest. And I think Mark Twain said, if you're honest, you never have to recall a thing in your life. And it's true, you have to be an honest person. And I think that's what Mum and Dad gave to me. So that's number 1 in my list.
I bet you can't hear the clink of 2 milk bottles or the sound of an electric milk without thinking about your dad. Is he still with us?
And unfortunately not. I mean, but what happened is lockdown happened. So that was 6 years ago now, in 2020. And he got poorly during lockdown, so I didn't see him for 18 months. Oh. And during that time, he got cancer, and I didn't know because Mum and Dad, don't tell the boys that attitude, the army spirit. Don't tell the troops. And then he got poorly. Then his cancerous tumor ruptured, and then he was given like days to live. And that's when I was allowed to break lockdown and go and see him. Yeah. And then the unfortunate thing is to honour a year later, but he died in November. So the following November, my brother and I and Mum were getting together to commemorate Dad, and we lost Mum exactly a year to the day. We lost Mum, and so unfortunately they both went very, very soon. But the thing is, as I said, Mum was a devoted housewife. And I saw Mum every weekend when Dad passed away. The first thing Mum said to me was, I miss you, Dad. Every weekend I met her. And so she wanted to be with Dad. So so it wasn't that she didn't have to wait that long. So that's the blessing.
Did she last to do the ceremony to mark the year since he passed, or was it literally?
No, it was literally a couple of days, before. But I was with Dad when he passed away. I was literally sitting by his bed when he passed away. I was sitting next to Mum's bed when she passed away. So that's it. I mean, that's a good thing. And the last thing Dad said to me was he's proud of me. The last thing Mum said to me was she loves me. So I can go on my merry way, knowing my parents are proud of me and they loved me. So what else does a man need in his life, really?
Beautiful storytelling. And I just have to also mention the idea of putting milk bottles down, silver top, gold top, in the snow. Apart from the gold bit there, it's a bit like the world's in black and white, which is then informing the wonderful signature photography that you do so beautifully.
Yeah, I mean, and just to say, just to keep on the milk chop thing, this is how lovely my dad was. On hot days, when the blue tits would come and tap on on every single bottle of milk, he'd get stones and put on the bottles so that the birds couldn't get the cream. That's the kind of guy he was.
Oh, lovely. Beautiful. I'm just deliberately allowing a pause there. And now the second thing that shaped you, please. One shot dots.
Okay, so it's a gentleman called Dr. Leach. And so Dr. Leach was somebody I met by complete fluke and accident when I was 18. And I was doing a job I didn't like doing. And this gentleman said, "You don't look very happy." I'm not very happy. He said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I said, "I really would love to be a photographer." And this gentleman said, "I teach photography at a private school in Holt. You're the same age as my sixth formers. If you want to, Saturday mornings, I do hobbies. Come along and I'll teach you with my pupils Saturday mornings." So for 6 months, I went to see Dr. Leach and he taught me the fundamentals of photography. He taught me how to light a scene, how to do darkroom work, how to pre-flash paper, how to develop a film, how to use flash and strobe and continuous light. And that September, the first ever college course in photography happened. It was called a BTEC National Diploma in Design Photography. And it was the first one, and it was in King's Lynn. And they were looking for 15 people throughout the UK to guinea pig this course.
Yeah.
And so Dr. Leach wrote to the dean of NORCAT, the North College in King's Lynn, the Norfolk College. And he said, "I've got this kid with me. He's not a student. He's not academically gifted, but he has something special about him. And if you're looking for someone to guinea pig this course," and on the strength of that letter, they took me on. I was one of the 15 they'd chosen. And that's how my photography path started. So I owe most of what I've done to Dr. Tony Leach from Holt.
And is Dr. Tony Leach from Holt still with us?
I believe so. I believe, but he used to be a teacher at Gresham School in Holt. I believe he then became an honorary member of staff when he retired. And I think now in the community, he does things around the community and the local church. I think, and I hope, he's still around on his bicycle, dotting around, making people's life a bit more happier.
And when did you last see him, if I may ask?
An awful long time ago, years ago, but because I've not been back to Norfolk for a long while. But I'd say a good 10 years at least. But
I would like to proffer a pilgrimage is in order. I think you should go back.
I think so. I think I should.
He knows what he did. Obviously, he knows what he did. But have you? And you are such a warm, generous human being. I'm sure you've thanked him already. But it would just be lovely to see you turn up again. I'm sure
he knows. He absolutely knows. But because I talk about him a lot, so he knows. Luckily.
Again, this is just wonderful. Thank you. And now the third shapage, if you like.
I'm not going to have to delve into my plethora of famous names, I'm afraid. Stephen Fry. Stephen Fry is why I'm sat here today. So I was at this college course, my 2-year course, my BTEC National Diploma in Design Photography. Year 1, you do all photography. You do fashion, fine art, landscapes. Year 2, specialise for the entire year, doing as something. I was getting to the end of year 1. It was all nice. There's nothing I felt I could give an entire year to. And I was this close in saying, maybe this isn't for me then. And Stephen, who lived in King's Lynn or South Wooton at the time, he came to give the end of year diplomas out. And so I knew, and if you think back to 1989, he was a megastar. Because there was only 4 TV channels. There wasn't Sky and cable. There was the 4 terrestrial channels. He was doing Jeeves and Wooster, Blackadder, Fry and Laurie. He's getting 28 million viewers per show. He's a mega monster star.
Yeah.
And he was going to come to give out the diplomas. And so I knew where he'd be in the art block doing a Q&A. So the room next door, I set up a backdrop and a light and a camera and went to his Q&A session. And I sat and I waited and I waited. And I thought, oh, here we go. Yes, boy at the back. Mr. Fry, could I please do a picture of you next door? He rolled his eyes and said, will you be quick? I promise you I'll be very, very quick. He gave me 90 seconds. I took 10 photographs, changed my life. It was that eureka, that boom, that moment. Everything made sense. I got this person who was iconic, being stupid for me, doing what I asked him to do, doing things I didn't ask him to do. Just I was an audience of one with this famous person, and it was like a drug, and it was phenomenal.
You're so good at whispering curmudgeonly people. You described John Cleese as being, oh, do we have to? And Stephen Fry, oh, he's not curmudgeonly, I know. But I love the fact that you broke through that in both cases and then did something absolutely iconic, which is fantastic.
And what's lovely is because he talks so much, he went back into the Q&A, and that gave me time to go to the darkroom, develop the one reel of medium format film, but that had 9 photographs on it. I looked at these guys, and then there's Stephen. He's the first one who'll tell you hasn't been gifted with looks, but he's got this broken nose, and it wasn't through luck. It wasn't through talent. It was a luck. A shadow fell across his face, so you couldn't see the break. I thought, oh, that's a nice shot. So I quickly done a 10x8. Went back to his Q&A, and as he was leaving, I gave him the 10x8 as he was leaving. And he said, oh, my dear fellow, this is outstanding. Can I have your phone number in case I use it for something down the line? So I gave him my Diggs phone number because I was staying in a house of other reprobates at the time. As I said, so I gave him my Diggs phone number and thought nothing more of it. Now, apparently what happened was that weekend, he went home, put the photograph on his mantelpiece. His best friend came over for Sunday lunch, Kenneth Branagh, saw the picture, but darling, who took that? You glorious, who took that? A young boy at college. Do you have his number? Here's his number. And it was a Monday morning, or it was Monday afternoon, because I was laid in, because I'm a student. The house phone rang. Oi, gods, Kenneth Branagh's on the phone. Yeah. So I got to the phone. Hello. Hi, Andy. It's Kenneth Branagh. How do you fancy coming to Highgate and shoot me and my wife, Emma Thompson? And I said, okay, when? He said, I think we're both free beginning of next week. Now, I'd passed my driving test 3 weeks before.
Well done.
So I drove from King's Lynn to Highgate at 30 miles an hour along the A11 and M11 because sort of getting to, and it took me a whole day to get there. I got to their road, literally a nervous wreck because I'd never driven out of Norfolk before, and this road was all cars parked everywhere. There's nowhere to park. And there was someone's drive. I'm just going to park my car. I don't care. I'm just going to park my car. And I just parked, turned the car off. And I just sat there. Then I heard this voice. Who are you? What do you want? Who are you? This old man came run out of his house. And I was there nearly in tears saying, I've come from Norfolk to photograph Kenneth Branagh and I don't know what to do, where to park. And he started laughing. And he said, tell you what, you can park here all day if you photograph me afterwards. I said, pardon? He said, oh, yeah, I've just done a TV program, Cat File, Derek Jacobi. And so Derek, who's friends with Ken and Emma, walked me down. He carried my bags, walked me down to Ken's house, laughing. Said, "Look what I found! He's parked his car in my driveway, and these are his bags. Look, I'm carrying them." And sat down. And so I shot Ken, and then shot Emma, and then I shot Derek, and they thought it was great. And he said, "Oh, so who are you shooting next?" Oh, well, I've got no plan. I just wrote the Bob Hoskins. Shall I give him a call? Okay. So he got Ken's house phone, called up Bob Hoskins, and literally that is how my career started.
Wow.
Thank you to Stephen Fry. So that's why he is on my little list, because if it wasn't for Stephen Fry, I would not have started my path that had led me here today.
And you're still in touch with Stephen Fry, I'm sure.
Monthly. We have an email or phone call monthly just to check in with each other, and that is 36 years later.
Oh, this is delicious. And now you're allowed a fourth shapeage. I'm sorry, it's taking a beautiful amount of time. I'm loving this. This is the right length with bells, whistles, and knobs on. So, what's the fourth shapeage? I'm
going to delve into the Andy's name list again. John Hurt. Sir John Hurt. The most beautifulest human being I've had the fortune of meeting, because he is so lovely and so generous. And what I loved about John is it took me a while to meet him and arrange a shoot, because at the time when I first started reaching out to him, he was living in Ireland, up atop of a mountain somewhere, so it was hard to get hold of. Then he moved back to the UK, and eventually we got to meet. And he was born on the exact same day as my dad. Same day, same year, 22nd of January, 1940. So I got this infinity with him that in 1940, on January 22nd, two babies were born. One was being an actor. One was going to have a son who's going to end up photographing, so I become good friends with John. And whenever I shot a project, whenever I did anything, John was the first person I'd go to, because I know he'd say yes. So I'd done this thing with Vivienne Westwood called Save the Arctic. Who's the first person to call? John. I've done the thing for BAFTA. Who's the first person? John. Done something for Elton John. Who's the first person? John. And he's always generous and gifted. Now, the years went by, and one day, out of the blue, so in the meantime, he'd moved to Norfolk, which was great, because my parents were still living there. And he phoned up, and he said, Andy, when are you going to come and see your parents next? I said, maybe at the weekend. When you do, love, come around and see me. Let's have a chat. I was okay. So I went around to see him, and he had this lovely house in the middle of nowhere in Norfolk. It's in East Runton. And it's a lovely house. And in his garden, he had this, it's like an outhouse, but he made it into an art studio. He'd sit there painting and writing and everything. And we sat in there. He poured us a pint of red wine each. And he said, darling, I've got something to tell you. He said, yes, John. He said, I've got cancer. I've been given months to live. I wanted you to know before the press gets hold of it, because I just wanted you to know. And I was quite bereft, because it was almost like, a family figure telling you, And he said to me, you're more than a photographer. I said, what do you mean, John? He went, you're more than just a photographer. I see you. You're more than a photographer. I said, John, I don't understand. Oh, he said, the way you see the world would be amazing in a moving image. Using what you do in the moving image would be magical. Can you be back here next weekend with a camera, a moving image camera? I said, well, I can be, but I've never, he said, come back here and direct me. I want you to direct me next weekend. So we finished our wine, we had a bit of a cry and a hug, and I went back to London. I went to a camera shop and I said, I need to get a camera that can do film, because I something I can just press play and stop, you know. And it's okay. And he said, you'll need sound software as well. So you can get that. So Calumet in London gave me all the higher stuff. And the next weekend, I went back to John. And I thought, you know, directing The Elephant Man, directing Quentin Crisp, you know, directing, you know, all these figures he's made famous at the years. What do I do? And so he let's get set up in the art studio. So he got set up, and I got a green screen set up, and so I done the lighting I would do for a photograph. I'd done for this, and I saw in the corner of his room there's a priest's robe, you know, the dog collar. And I said, oh, what was that? He said, yes, my father was a priest. And for no reason other to give me more thinking time, I said, John, do you want to put it on? So he said, of course I will. So he dressed up as this priest. And I was like, what should I do? How do I want to direct him? I still don't know what to do. He sat down. He went, okay, darling, direct me. And I said, do you know the words of Imagine by John Lennon? Of course I bloody do. And I said, well, how about you're a priest, speak the words like I'm one of your parishioners, speak the words as if you're giving me a parable. You know, imagine there's no heaven. And he did this entire Imagine in one take. And we done it. And he said, Senor Gotts, shall we go again? John, you did probably more than I wanted. And he said, let's do it one more time. He said, give me a note. I said, what's a note? You know, give me an idea. You know, give me your limper. That's called a note in the business. I went, okay. When you say, get to the line, imagine there's no heaven. You're a priest. Give it a little wry smile. Now, imagine there's no heaven. And I'll keep that. And so he did it once more. And then we, had another drink and said the goodbyes. And that was the last time I saw John. And this was the last thing he ever recorded. So I videoed John's last ever recording of him doing Imagine. And I showed it to a friend of mine who knew John, Charles Dance. And he started crying. And he said, this is the most beautiful, iconic piece of filmmaking I've ever seen. And so John making me do filming has now inspired me. My next direction, I'm going to direct something. I'm going to write and direct something, and that's a little burner that John gave me. And so if it wasn't for John, I wouldn't have that little burning desire in the back of my head.
And Andy, is that in the public domain, that film?
Yeah. I mean, I put it up as I showed it only to Anwin, that's John's wife. And I showed it to a few of his friends and his son, Nick. And then I just kept it to me. And then Anwin said one day, you know, people should see this. So I've not known what to do with it. So I put it on YouTube. So it's on YouTube, but I will find something to do with it one day. But what I will do, I don't know, but it's up there.
And will you please share the link with me and with us? Because I just think I just have to go and see it. That's, of all the faces in all the world, John Hurt had the most beautiful line lived in. I mean, what a subject.
It was, and the fact is, his voice is so iconic. And I used to tease him all the time because we used to talk about, favorite characters, favorite roles, favorite movies. And I said to him, to me, John, your best role ever was Skeleton Key. And then he his grumpy face, and but I played a man with a stroke and I couldn't speak. I said, exactly, you couldn't speak, so you didn't rely on your voice. You relied on your acting. And so he knew his voice was his money. He knew that. So it's always teased him that Skeleton Key, where he played a man who couldn't speak, was his best role ever. And so
Liquid Gold was his voice, but also I'm just so hooked by the Imagine by John Lennon set to John Hurt standing in his father's priest garb. Good grief.
Yeah.
Okay, we've done your shapeage. Woohoo! And now we're on to 3 things that inspire you. If there's any overlap or you've covered it already, that's completely fine. So 3 things that inspire you, Andy.
Well, my MA I did was an MA in photography and history of art.
Yeah.
But I love art. So I'd say an inspiration is L.S. Lowry for 2 reasons. One of them is quite epic. But the first reason is I loved his mindset. I loved the fact people took the mickey out of him because they thought his art was too naive, too simplistic, too repetitive. It was boring. He wasn't skilled enough to paint shadows, so he didn't bother. And people took the mickey out of him, and he knew people took the mickey out of him, and he said, "I don't care. This is how I paint. This is how I paint. This is how I like to paint, and I will continue painting this way." And I have the same mindset. Some people say, why don't you try color? Why don't you try, putting people in smart clothes? I have them groomed. It's like, well, no. I mean, this is my style. This is how I want to photograph. I'm not going to have. I'm not going to be fit in a box. You're a celebrity photographer. You're going to photograph celebrities in the celebrity. I mean, for example, let's say Brad Pitt was being photographed by Vanity Fair. They'll wheel him to a studio where he'll have his hair and makeup done, give him a suit to borrow, then have 4 or 5 lighting directors to light him, tell him how to pose. Then the photographer's wheeled in, click, wheeled out, and I don't want to shoot Brad Pitt, the character. I want to shoot Brad Pitt, the person. So I don't care if his hair's out there. I don't care if he's got spots. I don't care how he's dressed. And I think my mindset is with Larry. So he is a massive. And another reason is there was, I'm not going to say dearly departed, but let's just say he's gone, an art critic called Brian Sewell.
Yes.
And Brian Sewell didn't like Larry and his paintings. He didn't like me because he didn't think photography is an art form. And I went to a book launch of his, and it was in Mayfair, just around the corner. And he clocked me as he saw me come in the room, and in an elevated voice, he said, Andy Gotts, he did photography what Larry was for painting. and the fact, he thought that was a put down. But I took that as, thank you. And that's exactly who I am. Thank you.
Yes.
So Larry, he's one of the people who I...
Yes. And the iconic theme tune of Matchstalk Men and Matchstalk... Do you remember?
Yeah, exactly.
Jerry...
Michael and... There's 2 men, Michael and someone.
Yes.
There's 2 men.
Yes, I wish it had come to me. But yes, Lowry, totally iconic because of the matchstick, no shadows, all of that. And also, I'll be me is the great punchline from that. I'll be me, you be you. That's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact is, he was an old man when he started painting.
Yeah.
And it got to a stage where, his money, sorry, his paintings weren't making him any money. So he used to be looked after by a home help.
Yeah.
And so he used to paint on the back of cardboard boxes as payment to the people who looked after him in his old age. Yes. And the fact is, well, it's like Van Gogh, for example. Yes. You know, sold one painting, made no money, and I think there's artists like that, yes. Like Caravaggio, Rembrandt. They had something magical, and I think when I do my lighting is Caravaggio-esque. I mean, because he is chiaroscuro, I think it's called, the play of light and shadow. Yeah, I try and use that in my work.
And sorry for the thick question. I can't remember the time Larry died, but did you ever meet him? Sorry if that's
no. But he must have died. Because I watched a thing recently on an aeroplane going to LA, and it was Ian McKellen. Yeah. And someone found tapes of interviews that Larry had given over the years. Yeah. And so Ian McKellen was pretending to be Larry, lip syncing the actual tapes. And I think that must have been done in 76, 77. Yeah. So I was alive when Larry was alive, but I was a kid.
A bit like me and Stan Laurel, equivalent universe, absolutely. Yeah. So we've now done, I think, 3 of the things that inspire you. Is that 2 or 3? I've just got a tiny bit.
That's Larry. That is one. So I mean, I'll skip over the next 2 quite quickly.
No, that's fine.
I'm rabbiting. I know that.
No, this is just brilliant. It's gold. Keep going.
Another one was Hitchcock. I love Hitchcock because of his work ethic. Not so much his movies. His movies are amazing. I love the movies, but it was the way he worked, the way his ethic, where he used to hire a member of staff, just to sack them on the first day, just to keep everyone, you know, on point, and little things like that. I thought the way he worked, the way he structured a movie, the way he structured how things would happen, when it would happen. He didn't listen to the studio, didn't listen to what the producer said to him. He, as the director, ruled the roost, and it was his way or the highway. And you know, it's a bit like, I mean, I said the modern day equivalent would be David Lynch, where I saw a little video clip the other day where David Lynch was doing a movie. He had the headphones on, and he had someone from the studio next to him that said, "Can't we shorten that scene?" He went, "Shorten that? How dare you tell me to shorten that?" Well, you know, and it's like, you know, I love that attitude where actually, you know, if they say that's what you do because it's their money, but it's the attitude. It's my movie, and so I like Hitchcock because of that. And my third one is another, pulling your name out, Sidney Poitier, and I was so fortunate. I've met him a few times over the years. And the first time I met him, he was telling me his life story, and it was just so lovely. Where he was saying about he was raised in the Bahamas in like this little shanty village, and his parents made $5 a month, and they used to pick cotton and stuff. And where he lived, there was no hospital. They had a soothsayer and this kind of stuff. So Sidney was born 5 weeks too early. And so the mother gave birth to Sidney and wasn't breathing and thought the baby was dead. And so the mother literally got up with blood all over her legs and everything, got up, went to the soothsayer and said, "No, my son's has been born. I don't know what to do." And the soothsayer got hold of her hands, went into a bit of a trance, said, "Don't worry, your son will walk amongst kings." And so the mother went home. The father, thinking the baby it was dead, had wrapped it, mummified the baby and put it in the crib. He went, no, the baby will be fine. So unwrapped him, gave a hit on the back. That's how Sidney started his life. And he's telling the story with tears streaming down his face. And he's telling me about, you know, the struggle about getting from the Bahamas to New York, and how he's never taken serious. Again, it's like Larry. never taken seriously because of his thick accent. His thick, and he said, I had to watch British movies to lose the accent.
Yes.
And he said, I then had to learn that. I then had the hard task of leaving the theatre to start movies in Los Angeles. And he said, no one had done that. No black man had made the transition from movies, from theatre to movies.
Yes.
And I went and I tried and I auditioned and no one would give me a chance. No one would give me, they just saw me as a blackface and they didn't give me a chance. And he said, one day I was given a chance to do a movie. And in the movie, and this is him speaking, is that in the movie, I was always in a one shot. I was never in a two-person shot where you see two actors. I was in a one shot because they had cut me out of the film, because some states didn't have black men in film. And he was telling me this story, and he said, and I owe my career to Tony Curtis. And I said, why? And he said, Tony and I done a movie called The Defiant Ones. And he said, I and Tony play prisoners. We're shackled together. We're on a train. Tony plays a bigot. I'm a black man. And we escape. The entire movie is a bigot, racist, and a black man shackled together.
Yes.
We're on the run. We had the same amount of screen time, same amount of dialogue. But the poster was Defiant Ones starring Tony Curtis.
Yes.
And Tony said to the studio, unless we have equal billing, take my name off the movie. And so Sidney was the first black actor ever to headline a movie. And he said, if it wasn't for Tony, I wouldn't be here. Sidney Poitier wouldn't be here. Wesley Snipes wouldn't be here. Denzel Washington would. He said, he said, we owe it all to a white man. And that's him with such respect with someone who wanted to help out someone, the gift of a good deed.
Yes.
And I think that's resonated, sort of stayed with me.
Yeah.
Doing a bit of good for someone, and you're getting nothing back, not even a thank you, getting nothing back, but you're doing something good for the good of something.
Yes. So a wonderful, simple, random act of kindness, or not random, but a very specific act of kindness. Love that. And now we're on to the very exciting bit, borrow from the film Up, where the dog goes, oh, squirrels. So what are your two squirrels? What would you say your two monsters of distraction are? What two things never fail to grab your attention, Andy One-Shot Gotts, irrespective of anything else that might be going on for you in your very eclectic life?
When I see the news, when I read articles, when I think of the internet, what gets me, what gets my attention? Young celebrities and their attitude. I've got this beef with some. It's the you look at these old actors who shine with the glory, who do anything for anyone.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see a headline: "Oh, a famous singer was smiled at in a restaurant, and she sent a bodyguard off to tell him off." It's like the arrogance now of younger celebrities. Yeah, that stops me. I'm dumbfounded. I mean. It's like, how dare they? Tell the public aren't less than them. The public, I'm not saying they owe their career or they owe their fame, but if it wasn't for these people buying the records, it wasn't for them buying Netflix or going to the cinema, they wouldn't have. So it's the arrogance of some of the younger celebrities.
Yes,
that's whoa, hello. Stop.
I love it when a squirrel is a bit of a beef as well. So thank you for that. Yeah. Incredulity of arrogance of young celebrity. I love that answer.
That is absolutely. And the other one, I'd say, and it's usually because out of all social media, the one I'm on most is Instagram. And I mean, as people will know, you can do an Instagram post and it posts on Twitter or post it on. So literally, I do one thing on Instagram and it posts it everywhere. So I'm on Instagram the most. And when I'm scrolling through Instagram, what stops me is the brilliance of makeup in film, the prosthetics, how the skill behind that. I mean, in a different life, that's a career I'd have done, because I'm lucky enough that because of my job, I've met a lot of these people who do prosthetics.
Yeah.
For example, there's a guy called Barry Gower. He's won Emmys and you name it. He's won Golden Globes. He invented Vecna in Stranger Things. He invented the Night King in Game of Thrones. You know, he invents.
Wow.
He's just finished making Johnny Depp into Ebenezer for the this Christmas's Scrooge. And looking at what he does, and I've got another friend, David. He won the Oscar for making Gary Oldman into Winston Churchill.
Yes.
And there's one thing seeing prosthetics of a monster, because a monster is imaginary, but seeing prosthetics to make a face look human and realistic.
Yes.
I think there's skill in that. So that stops me when I'm scrolling through and you see a bit of a face, so you think it's a face, then you can see a bit of latex flopped out. And so that always stops me. I always have to stop and think, how was that painted?
Yeah.
How is that hair punched? How is that? I zoom in and sort of look. And so to answer your question, prosthetics and special effects makeup is one of my squirrels, one of my nuts, as it were.
Lovely squirrels, lovely nuts. And now the one is a quirky or unusual fact about you, Andy Gotts, we couldn't possibly know about you until you tell us.
During lockdown, I got obsessed with Bob Ross and his Happy Little Clouds. And so I learned during lockdown to paint landscapes Bob Ross style. So that's what I did. So, I mean, for people who don't know who Bob Ross is, he had this technique called a wet on wet painting technique. So he'd get his canvas, get an oil and a white paint, laminate the entire white canvas, then paint on that wetness, so he can move the paint around so it blends together. Yeah. And I taught myself Bob Ross painting during lockdown. That's something.
And have you got a particular sort of da-da piece that you produce, you're thinking that's the one?
I did a traditional Bob Ross landscape with snow-topped mountains and a few pine trees and a few grassy knolls. And I think that, to me, I remember watching Bob Ross when I was 6 or 7, watching him on screen, because it was such a unique experience. It'd be just a black background with an easel and this man with an afro who was pleasant. He was talking to you.
Yes.
He was, you're there watching him, and in 24 minutes, I'm going to do an entire landscape.
Yes.
And so it wasn't, over the course of a week. In 24 minutes, he'd do from a wet white canvas into a beautiful landscape. And I was mesmerized being a child. And then during lockdown, I stumbled across a YouTube thing. And so what people don't know about me is that, and also another little thing people will never know about me. When I was doing my first degree, I didn't get, my parents couldn't afford to send me to university. I didn't get a bursary. I didn't get a scholarship. I had to work every day for about 3 years. So for every day for 3 years, I was a nightclub bouncer. And I'd start work at 9 o'clock at night till 3 o'clock every morning. I was a bouncer to make money to fund my photography. So when I left 3 years later, most of my peers were in debt. I was in the green. I left uni with money in the bank. So that's another something people don't know about me.
May I ask how tall you are? Because I wasn't perceiving you'd be a big, bruising 6'7" bouncer stereotypically.
I'm 5'2". No, I'm 5'10". 5'10". So I mean, the average height for a Caucasian person in the UK is 5'8". So I'm above average height, but 5'10".
Love that. Also, I'm loving the through line of how you're very admiring of one of a kind. So the John Hurts of the world, the Stephen Frys, even the Bob Ross you've just described, there is a through line of you being very attracted to the sort of universe of people who are totally idiosyncratic, even your own work. you're true, authentic. I'll be me, you be you. And that quote that I heard Stephen Fry quoting Oscar Wilde, "Be yourself because everyone else is taken," is a really nice quote. We have shaken your tree, hurrah.
Ooh.
Now we stay in the clearing, which is within your man cave, which is where you are at Mayfair. And now we're going to talk about alchemy and gold. And again, I think you've been giving us this by the bucket load in any case, but when you're at purpose and in flow, Andy Gotts, Hollywood's favorite photographer, what are you absolutely happiest doing in what you're here to reveal to the world?
I'm happiest when I'm actually doing nothing. That's, I mean, I feel pleasure when, but if you'd imagine, because of the time zones, I'm up really, really late in the morning. So it's maybe to about 3 o'clock in the morning, talking to LA for the time difference.
Yeah.
And then first thing in the morning, our time, I speak to people in Asia.
Yeah.
So literally all my day is I'm doing something. So my, I'm at my happiest when I'm sat down, when emails are off, computers are turned down, and maybe I have go-to movies. I have movies I can sit down, turn the sound down, and I can voice every line of every actor because I've seen it like 80, 90 times.
Yeah.
And so maybe watching a movie with the sound barely up and just watching it with a blank look on my face, just letting it wash over me. It's like Trading Places.
Yes.
I watch Trading Places every day of the week, and it's great because the story behind it, making someone what he's not,
Yes.
and then making them back again. But you can't turn back time because it'll bite you. I mean, the whole thing. I mean, the whole story arc of Trading Places. Yes, it's not. I mean, it'll be not in everyone's top 100. Of course it won't. But it's my favorite, and my favorite movie of all time is a 1955 version of The Ladykillers. Not the Tom Hanks butchered version he did, which I tell him is rubbish. It's the original. Yeah. I mean, there's something magical about that because did you know
as well?
I mean the cast. I mean, you had Danny Green, you had Herbert Lom, who was a friend of mine, before he passed away. You had Peter Sellers, but did you know the part was actually written for Alistair Sim? So the professor role, and I was friends with George Cole, and George was the adopted. We're not going to say adopted, but he lived with Alistair Sim when he was growing up. He didn't have parents who cared about his well-being. So George Cole lived with Alistair Sim, and so if you look at some of the George's early movies.
Yes.
He's with Alistair, whether it's the Trinians or whether George would pop up, and he told me this little story where Alistair was doing a movie, and it was a sequel to a movie. So he couldn't do Ladykillers. So casting people found Alec Guinness. And they made him up to look like Alistair Sim with the long hair and the crooked teeth. So some people think Alistair Sim is the lead in it, but actually, it should have been. But it's the lovely Alec Guinness.
And I'm assuming you've photographed. Of course, you have Eddie Murphy as well, talking about Trading Places.
Absolutely. And the thing is, I love good things in movies. I like the crossover parts in movies. So sometimes, when a movie happens and there's another movie and they make a reference to the movie. And so I love it in you've got like Trading Places where you have these two arrogant, rich people and they put all their money in stocks and they bet on that the orange crop will fail that year. And they put all their money in, and then the Eddie Murphy character and the Dan Aykroyd character shimmy around. So actually, it makes money. So these two old guys lose all their money. They're thrown out of the stock exchange, and then they're left without a penny. And then in Coming to America, the scene where the prince comes to America and he says, I must give away all my money. He gets this big wad of money and throws it at these two tramps. These two tramps are the two old men. They go, oh, we're back. And it's things like that. And I love the crossover movies. I love it.
I love looking good, Elwood, feeling good, Elwood. Wonderful. So now we're coming up towards the end of the show now, whereby I'm going to award you with a cake now, Andy Gotts. Hurrah. And you get, well, first of all, do you like cake?
Let's say, if we were in a restaurant and you said, you can have a dessert, I always have apple and rhubarb crumble. That's my favorite. But if you had to say, have a cake or I will punch you, I'll have a carrot cake.
You can have both, rhubarb, apple crumble, bit of ice cream, and a bit of cake. That's the flavour of choice there. What was the flavour you said? A carrot. Lovely.
Carrot cake.
You get to put a cherry on your cake now. What's a favourite inspirational quote that's always given you succor and pulled you towards your future?
I love the one. Actually, it's funny. I didn't even think of this question. That's off the radar, but all of a sudden 3 came in my head at once. So I'll do the first one. It's a Mark Twain one, and it's a lovely one. And it's the 2 most important things in your life. 1 is when you're born. 2 is when you find out why. I like that a lot. I like that. And also, I like the Richard O'Brien one from the Rocky Horror Show, where don't dream it, be it. I like that one. I also like the Phineas T. Barnum one. There's a sucker born every minute. I like that one too. I always do, but I'd say Mark Twain was the encyclopedia of quotes. So I think that's my favorite one.
Just to deliberately reincorporate the Mark Twain one, just say it again so we can let it float there.
Yeah, so the 2 most important parts of your life. 1 is the day you're born. This other one is when you find out why.
Lovely. With the gift of hindsight, what notes, help or advice might you proffer to a younger version of yourself, Andy Gotts? So you can decide when you go back and holographically appear, wrap your arms around your own shoulders and whisper some wise words in your own ear. What would you say?
Well, if I was to give advice to my younger self or go back and say something to my older self, I'd say, you're right. Because people, I was brought up with people thinking I'd never make it. People said, change your career, you're never going to make it. And I now and again doubted myself. So I'd go back and say, actually, you're right. Stick to it, you're right. But if I was to give some advice to other young people, I'd say be yourself. Don't change yourself to please other people. Yes. Don't try and be something you're not. Be yourself. And if people don't like you for being yourself, they're not worth knowing. That's what I'd do.
Lovely.
That's what I do.
Perfect. We're ramping up to talk about Shakespeare finally, but just before we do, this is a moment called Pass the Golden Baton, please. An invitation which you don't have to follow the path of, but now you've experienced this from within, who in your network might you like to pass the golden baton along to, who might like to be given a damn good listening to in this way?
I'd say, if you want, I'd say I've got 3 friends. 2 of them are famous, and 1 of them is famous in his own right. I'd say either I'd give the baton to Barry Gower. He's a prosthetic makeup artist, and his Barrie, Barry Gower. He is an amazing makeup artist. But if I'd go down either Charles Dance. I think he is quite a cool guy. He has a litany of stories, but also the actor David Bradley. He is phenomenal. I mean, people might know him from being the Harry Potter, playing the caretaker, but he has done so much over the years. And I sat with him, and he was telling me literally every actor you can imagine he knows or has worked with. Yes. Going back to like the 1940s, 50s, he knows everyone. He'd have anecdotes. So I'd hand my baton to David, Barry, or Charlie. Either of those would be well worth the plonk.
well worth the plonk. And with your permission, if you can broker a sort of warm introduction, that would be marvelous. Thank you very much indeed. And now, and sincerely, thank you. That's just beautiful. And now, inspired by Shakespeare, all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players. This is the actual book that I bought. It's not a first folio, but when I first went to the Bristol Old Vic Theatre School years ago, it says here, Chris Grimes, 16986, when I went there. I'm also about to be at the Bristol Old Vic Theatre School interviewing Sir Gregory Duran, I think, live on stage, which is very, very exciting. Yes, so inspired by Shakespeare, all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players. How, when all is said and done, Andy Gotts, Hollywood's favourite photographer, would you most like to be remembered?
Well, I'm lucky. I already know my epitaph, which is good, but it was given to me by Ringo Starr. So he sets up the loveliest thing. So for those who don't know who Ansel Adams is, Ansel Adams was a photographer of landscapes, and he done the most brilliant mountains in Yosemite, and it's just unbelievable. And the way he did it he'd get his bit of darkroom paper, he'd pre-flash the paper, and then do the zone system. So every photograph had the pure white, pure black, and 8 shades of grey in between. And his landscape, you see every nook, every cranny of his mountains. And Ringo Starr made the little quote: "Andy Gotts is the Ansel Adams of faces." And I think that will be on my tombstone, because I'm the only celebrity photographer. I don't edit faces. I don't retouch. There's no Photoshop. So when I go click, that's it. What so you can see every wrinkle, every crow's feet. Some people, comment on my work. Why haven't you edited out? But I've done this lovely picture of Lauren Bacall when she was 88, and you can see her face, and you can see every single line. And when I was at her house she lived in the Dakota building, and that's a building where Lennon got killed outside. So you can't photograph within a building. So I had to UPS my camera in, which you like shuffle down when you go in. So we did this secret photo shoot in her house. And when I shot it on a very close lens, and she said, "Yeah, these lines Catherine Hepburn gave me. These lines Bogie gave me." And it's just like her face was the map of her life.
Yes.
So why edit them out?
Yes.
I don't understand why some magazines, think, the public thinks. I'll give you a great example. A great example is Rolling Stones lead singer, Mick Jagger.
Yeah.
Okay. So Mick doesn't like his wrinkles. So when you see him on stage, there's a filter on the camera. So beside the stage, you see the screens.
Yes.
It's to mirror out a shadow reflections on his skin, so he looks more youthful. But there's this great photograph. Someone stood behind the monitor, photographing the monitor and Mick Jagger. And so you can compare the real Mick Jagger to the one you see on the screen. And it's like, people know your face. They see that, so you don't have to pretend you don't have lines. We know you're in your 80s. Yes. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. So I think Ringo's, you're the Ansel Adams of faces. That's going to be my when I cark it.
And it's Ansel Adams, is that right?
Ansel Adams, yeah. Ansel, so Ansel, Ansel Adams.
And just so we've got the quote, knowing the spelling of the name, just say the epitaph once again, just to deliberately reincorporate it.
Andy Gotts is the Ansel Adams of faces.
Wonderful. We're going to ask a final question in a second, but now I'm just going to do a very exciting moment, which is called Show Us Your QR Code, Please. So if you've been watching and listening to this extraordinary journey and traverse through the clearing by Andy Gotts, if you're watching, you can scan the QR code straight away. But it's very simple. You just go to andygotts.com and the whole world of the black and white signature landscape will unpick. And you're also showing a book. Tell us more about that, Andy.
This is just my last book. This is my lockdown book. So during lockdown, I had 18 months of no photo shoots. So I went through my entire 30-year collection, and I've done a book of contact sheets from my archive, and so this is my latest book. It's called The Photograph.
And I'm just going to unmirror you just for a moment. So I'm going to hold the book up again. So there you are. I'll keep you mirrored for the rest. Andy Gotts, and that's the and who's that on the front? Sorry, her name's just gone straight out of my head.
Scarlett Johansson.
Of course it is. Apologies. Of course it's Scarlett Johansson. Lovely. So go and buy that book too. Just a couple of announcements from me. If you've been enjoying listening to this show, the website for my show is thegoodlisteningtoshow.com. In rather exciting news, it syndicates to iHeartRadio, Brushwood Media, and also UK Health Radio. So potentially there are tens of millions of listeners across the world listening to the show as well. There's also a very special series strand to the show in case of extra interest called Legacy Life Reflections, which is to use this same curated structure to record your life story for posterity. That's legacylifereflections.com, helping you to take a trip down memory lane with this structure. Andy Gotts, One Shot Gotts, as this has been your moment in the sunshine in the Good Listening To show, stories of distinction and genius, and I can't tell you what a privilege this has been. And thank you for saying yes when I asked you that facetious question. I think you're a bit of a genius. Please, can I talk to you? Is there anything else you'd like to say, Andy?
I would say to people either starting out in an art, so whether you're a painter, whether you're a ballet dancer, whether you're a poet, I'd say, there are several quotes out there that people can associate with trying, but the best philosopher, you don't need, an Asian clever quote. The best quote was by Rocky Balboa, where he says, it's not how hard you can punch, it's how hard you can take a punch and get up and keep moving forward. And I think I had that in my head when I was a jobbing photographer, and every phone call was a thank you but no. And it's like, there's times you think, is it worth it? And it's the strength to go forward, the strength to think, actually, one day I'll get there. So I think for any artist, anyone who's finding a struggle, especially in this current climate of AI and current climate of people don't believe what you do anymore because they think you've just typed it and it's come up. I think for creative people, it's a really hard life at the moment. I'd say, you're going to get hit hard. Stand up, keep moving forward. You might win the fight.
And the Rocky Balboa quote, obviously Sylvester Stallone, so I know you photographed him as well. Obviously. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Andy. You don't have to say yes, but someday may I come and visit your man cave because it just looks extraordinary.
If you win an Oscar or Grammy.
I'll work on it. And someday I would love to be on the receiving end of your lens. But anyway, thank you so much. It's been a real privilege. It's been a great conversation. And
thank you, sir.
Yes, and who are you photographing next, if I may ask?
I can't tell you. I'm doing a project that's lasting a year. And I'm going to America twice a month doing this book that's coming out next February, and I've had to do an NDA. I can't even say what it's revolving, but I'm doing this massive thing. It's going to be the biggest thing I've ever done, and it's out next February.
Wow! So, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Chris Grimes. Most importantly, this has been the wonderful Andy One Shot Gotts. Thank you for listening. Thank you very much indeed. End the stream. Good night. Just going to press